Okay, we're back here with another unboxing. This time it's the Cisco ME 3600X24FS Metro Ethernet switch fiber series.
Now, we're a enterprise, and yes, the switch has Metro Ethernet in the name and is targeted to service providers. But we've come to rely on the Metro series Ethernet switches in order to take advantage of the advanced QoS features that you get on every Ethernet port in this particular model. Listen to this. A switch that uses a modular QoS CLI with 4,000 egress queues per system. And we can get back to that after we go through the odds and ends here. We got a dual power supply. Normal attention items that we fail to read every time. And this one comes with a standard rack mount kit. I believe that we specified which rack option we wanted. Obviously, service providers have different size racks. I don't think 19 inches is a standard for telco providers.
Probably 23 inches, probably the standard, I think.
23 inches?
Yeah,
so
I believe so. So those ears probably rotate, maybe. They go to, maybe they...
Oh, it's a dual purpose one? So
Possibly.
that you can pop them out this way and have the extra extension?
Possibly.
All right.
Turn them on their end so they go to 23 inches.
These are interesting. Little cable management. What's that?
Power cord management, maybe?
Power cord management. It seems a little small for power cord. I don't know that we could fit that in there. Oh, maybe it just, yep, it's power cord management. So there you go.
Is that a lock to prevent it? It might be a lock to, it may lock on the back of the chassis.
So it doesn't just pop
from
out?
Coming out, yeah.
Very
We've
nice.
seen that with the metal and the screw retainer. This seems a little
Yep,
fancier.
it's got the metal pieces so that it can swivel and lock into place. And
Grounding.
I think this might be for the sensors or the DC kit, and obviously a grounding lug. Remember to ground your equipment. A lot of people forget to ground their equipment, and you actually have an increase in the number of failures of device.
Interesting that this equipment is made in the USA, whereas the technologically advanced equipment is not.
Yeah, sees where we're going. All right,
We now manufacture grounding lugs here.
Yep. Can we take this out? Oops, thank you. You want to start with the front or the back?
Oh,
The back
whatever.
is, in my view, the back is the port side, but we'll have to check the airflow to make sure. Let's start with the rear of the unit, as this will take a little bit of less time. If you can help me take the plastic off. Here we are. Here's the power supply. It's obviously field serviceable and done so hot as well. So if you have one power supply powering the system, we could take the second power supply, power it off, and pull it out and replace it. It's got a few fans in there, and pretty basic scenario. Obviously, it's going to have the option for DC connectivity, and it's probably a very popular option since it's aimed for the carrier space. We have the PSU and input LEDs. They're separate, so perhaps different combinations of errors or failures will give you a different combo of LED settings, telling you whether your AC is active, or your input is active here, of course, and then PSU probably tells you an overall status of PSU. Perhaps a fan failed, it may go yellow. That pretty much wraps up the power side. I'm gonna flip her over to the port side. All right, so lots of action going on this. Let's get a good pan of that. A good overview to start. Very nice. So we have, starting from the left, several LEDs on the system. This seems to be maybe more than most. Maybe the newer ones have a lot of LEDs, but we have actual LEDs for power supply input 1 and 2, power supply fan 1 and 2, an SD card light, obviously the system light. This one's in yellow, I could barely read it, but it says management for the management port status, sync for the time synchronization, and alarms 1 through 4. Probably have to check the documentation to determine the status of such a
The meaning of those LEDs.
yeah, meaning of LEDs. Or they should make a little thing pull out. You know how they have the serial numbers? That'd be sweet if it had enough information, but that's probably too much. There's an SD card slot right under there. I haven't seen that before. That's interesting. So now actual physical ports, starting from left here, we have the bits port, which is a timing synchronization service for service providers, mainly. I haven't actually used that feature anywhere yet. Have you?
No.
No. Huh? Okay. And there's an alarms output. So I guess there must be a service provider standard alarming system that you could probably pop this out to, so you monitor maybe everything in the rack with some sort of monitoring system. We have our management port, dedicated management port. That'll be in a VRF dedicated to management, so that the routing table is separate from all your other setups. Console port, normal one here. We don't have the USB, the new USB style. Now we're going to get into the downstream. Downstream ports. These could be your user-facing ports. I actually believe that in this system, because it's a service provider system, you actually have to tell it that it's a UNI or an NNI, a user network interface, or a network to network interface. So in general, this should be a user to network interface. These are 1 gigabit per second SFP slots. And the cool thing about the 3600 and why we use it in our enterprise settings is, as I alluded to before, due to the QoS. If we have a connection from a service provider, we probably plug them into the uplink ports over here. These are capable of 10 gig.
With a license unlock.
With a license unlock, yes, you have to order that to unlock the 10 gig capability. But the use case that we see the most of in our settings is to have multiple VLANs coming in a single high-speed port, such as the 10 gigabit per second ports over here, and then we can break out those VLANs on the various ports here. So if we have 2 different reasons for connectivity coming into a port here, say maybe you have 2 different internet connections. One's tagged with VLAN tag 2 and the other one's tagged with VLAN 4, and the other one might be a guest internet. We could have 1 VLAN coming out one port and 1 VLAN coming out the other port. And the huge advantage of this platform is we can do full modular QoS CLI shaping on every single port in the system. Now this is big. If we had, say, a scenario where we only had, say, 150 megabits per second that we're getting from the carrier, we plug this in, we could shape our connection down to 150 megabits per second and get the full throughput. What some people may not realize is that the carrier will check your throughput by your packet gaps. It's a very oversimplified explanation, but if you send your packets in order too quickly, even though you may not be exceeding the actual bits per second over a period of time, your carrier could drop your packets. So making sure your QoS system knows how much bandwidth is actually available to work is crucial for that QoS policy to kick in, take effect, and do the proper prioritization of the packets.
All right, so while we're going to power this thing up, but before that happens, it may get a little loud. We'll talk a little bit about the overall performance capabilities. Cisco positions this, they call this this switch as being running on their Cisco's carrier Ethernet ASIC. Enables hierarchical QoS, MPLS, VPLS, all at line rate.
So this would make a good downstream from an ASR, say in a MPLS network. You'd actually have 24 gigabit Ethernet connections for a fraction of the price of what you'd pay on an ASR 1000, and you could probably even MPLS tag all the way to the switch, or set up VPLS from switch to switch to give you a layer 2 virtual connection over a layer 3 infrastructure. It's got a lot of uses, and I think that enterprises should be, taking a look at the cost effectiveness of a platform such as this versus trying to buy a router port, an ASR level router port for every Metro Ethernet connection that's required. Sometimes you can get away with using one of these. I mean, the carriers certainly do.
So this guy supports from routing protocols, RIP, OSPF, EIGRP, ISIS, BGP,
OBGP,
BFD, IPv4 multicast, I believe. It says PIM, SMDM, SSM, but I believe it's IPv4. Policy-based routing, among other things.
Yep.
I think we mentioned 4,000 egress queues.
Correct.
An egress queue could match a physical port, a VLAN.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, the hierarchical QoS, class-based weighted for queuing, priority queuing.
Mm-hmm.
OAM.
Yeah, bunch of service provider features. OAM, MPLS OAM, ELMI. A lot of Metro Ethernet style advances in technology are present on this platform.
Full duplex forwarding is 44 gigabits per second.
44 gigabits per second.
1 gig DRAM. I think we covered all the physical ports pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
Was a little bit more information on the bit service. It's actually, the full name is the Building Integrated Timing Supply Interface. Also supports synchronous Ethernet.
Synchronous Ethernet. That's interesting.
Synchronization messaging channel, which clearly relates to those timing services.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it talks about on the datasheet MPLS and the access layer. You could extend the MPLS all the way down to a high density switch with a lot of Ethernet connectivity, saving yourself some money. Of course, those ports on the end that are upgradable to 10 gig, but they do run both 1 gig and 10 gig, utilizing the SFP and SFP plus optics. The amount of optics supported on this is an unbelievable amount. It supports the DWDM optics, which is dense wave division multiplexing, I believe, which basically you can run a single piece of fiber and break it out, single piece of fiber, and have
32 maybe
32 to 64. I mean, they're probably even higher and higher and higher, but basically get up to 64 different 10 gig channels on a single fiber, along with storage and fiber channels. So if you have one of those DWDM optical systems, this device actually supports the SFPs required to participate in that topology.
All right, so you can see that we've got the LED for PS2s lit. So
and it's also lit back here. It says the input is lit, but PSU is not.
Okay, so this corresponds to AC power, essentially, being input, being sensed.
Senses the juice.
All right, let's fire it up.
A little bit of a delay there.
We've got a quiet hum right now.
Yeah, I have a orange on the input on the second power supply that's not plugged in.
Yeah, we see the same over here. From previous experience, I'm expecting a high jump in the fan speed, but we'll see what happens here.
We have a blinking system LED indicating the device is probably running diagnostics. It's perhaps done with that. Maybe it is actually booting the operating system located on the internal flash. No high rev yet. Interesting. There's actually multiple hardware options with this system LED stop blinking. As we stated before, there is AC and DC power supply options. There is a ETSI rack mount option, a 23-inch rack mount option, an angled rack mount option. And I've yet to see one of these angled, but that is an interesting, it's an interesting option. Probably works for cable management and trying to conserve space when you're on the wall. Oh, we have quite the level of orange LED action going on here. And of course, this supports VRFs. The Metro IP access license gets you the layer 3 features for your advanced routing protocols, multi-VPN routing and forwarding, customer edge capabilities. That's multi-VRF CE. The advanced Metro IP license gets you MPLS, Ethernet over MPLS pseudo-wires, VPLS, MPLS traffic engineering, fast reroute, and MPLS VPN support. So fast reroute is something customers should be asking their carriers about. In my understanding, somebody tipped me off to that. If you ask your service provider to see if they have fast reroute enabled, if they have a failure within their network, it may increase your convergence speed for your MPLS connection.
All right, well, it looks like this guy is a festival of lights here, so we're going to take a look at the status, see what's going on. But for now, that's your unboxing ME 3600X FS.
Thank you.
Okay, so the switch is finished booting. It's stabilized. We have PS1, PS input 1 is amber, PS2 is green, corresponding to the AC input. PS fan 2 is green, and all other lights are dim. There's nothing connected. So it looks like we've reached a steady state here.
As expected, PS1 is not plugged in. We only had PS2 plugged in, so everything seems to be as expected.
All right, well, this is your Cisco ME 3600X 24FS unboxing.
Thank you.
Thanks.